All right, this is going to be a bit of an experiment. First time using OBS today to do a live stream, so hopefully I'm live. If not, I'll figure it out probably pretty quick. Today I thought we'd talk about improvisation from the perspective of my students, people that have either taken classes from me or private lessons. It's such a good topic. It's a huge topic that we can just go on and on and on, forever with. So I thought, again, today what we would do is simply take some of the questions that I've had thrown at me in some classes, and I won't mention the people that ask the questions, just keep those names private, but I will kind of use these questions to guide me today as I talk about these topics. And if you want to get into this topic of improvisation, I've got a cool deal going on for YouTube. You can get 15% off of my improvisation classes through the weekend. Check the video description for that coupon code, but I'll mention it quickly. It's improv15. All right, who knows if I'm live? I really have no idea, but I'm just going to assume that I am. So let's do this. I was hoping that I could find, there it is. I could find the video. And that way, if you have any questions that come up, you are absolutely welcome. There we go.
Please.
Whoops. Sorry. There we go. That should solve it. Okay. I just wanted to open up the video so I could see. Good morning to everybody that is here. So let's jump right into it and start talking about improvisation. You guys let me know how you think this live stream is compared to others. Again, this is OBS, something I've never used, this software. All right, here's the question. My biggest challenge is keeping track of where I am in the 12-bar blues and trying to keep count. My original response was to just listen, keep listening to the examples of this music. And over time, you will not need to count while you're playing because that will be a distraction. I do think for beginners, it's smart to count to get the concept down of how to count, say, 12-bar blues, counting each measure out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, and so on, 2, 2, 3, 4. You go through the 12 bars and taking stock of where the chord changes are, etc., in a traditional 12-bar. But after that, you really need to just be listening. So if you're losing track of where you are, you probably need more coming into your brain and listening so that you start to naturally hear and interpret those changes in, say, the 12 bar. And you won't have that problem. That's my thing. Okay, change the aspect ratio. Cool, thanks for the tip there. I see that I'm slightly smaller than I need to be. I wonder if you can change that on the fly. How's that? Let's see if that changes anything. I see what I did wrong now. I don't know if it'll adjust it live, but we'll find out in a second here. Everyone's texting me. You're live on YouTube. Thanks for the heads up, everybody. That's great. Appreciate the tip. So I adjusted the aspect ratio, but it may not adjust. Oh, there it did adjust. I see. How cool is that? Thanks for the tip. Appreciate that help. All right, let's keep going. Creating a series of musical riffs and statements that work with the melody but isn't the melody, and doing it on the fly. In other words, how can we work on this? I love this topic. I love this question. So first, get the melody down perfectly. So this is somebody who wants to improvise and kind of use the melody as a guide, which I like this idea a lot. But think phrasing. That's the answer. Think about how the melody, if you're playing Georgia and you hear Georgia, Georgia, you may imitate some of that phrasing without playing the same notes. So that's one thing you can think of right away, is just copy and imitate portions of the phrasing of the melody, but bring in different note choices. You'll be able to do this on the fly and sort of play with pieces of the melody and then step away. Another thing you can do is just kind of play the melody and insert improvisation ideas around the melody. Think of Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem or whatever. What else? But first, get the melody down. Think phrasing and space. Don't think notes. Meaning, think phrasing first, then adjust the notes is what I mean. All right, let's keep going. I have a problem getting lost in a slow blues. I forget where I am in the progression. We kind of just talked about that a little bit ago. and then I wait to get back in. Well, one thing you can do, especially with the slow blues, is think of call and response ideas. You know, think about things that fit into the structure of each 1, 4, and 1, etc. section. So if you've got 4 measures of the 1, you're going to think of call and response ideas that take up those 4 measures perfectly. Then you can shorten that to cover 2 measures of the 4 chord and have so you can use call and response to keep yourself on track, is what I'm saying. Let me see if I could do this on the fly. I got to repeat. Now I'm done with that 1 chord section, the first 4 measures. So I have a minute to figure out the call and response I would want to work on, let's say for the 4 chord. The problem that you will run into, you have to be careful, is that you don't want to pre-prepare too much. You could practice several ideas and hopefully one will come out naturally, you know? So that's what comes to mind with keeping track of slow blues. Get a little structure in your lines. Yeah, that's the main tip. And you really got to feel the count instead of trying to count. You have to feel the chord changes as they move through. And putting more rests between your ideas would also be it would be helpful, because trying to adjust this. I don't want to play with the aspect ratio again. Rests and space in your music allow you to hear and not miss when those chord changes come. So that's another thing. Dynamics concerning volume, loud, soft. Is it all by feel? Is there a formula when you hit it and when you back off? There's no real formula, but you have to follow what you're feeling in the moment. But just keep in mind that more volume is a little more intense. So you're building towards a climax or creating tension often, and the resolve is usually quieter. So keeping that in mind, you might dynamically build something louder as you're getting into the middle of the idea and resolve it and get quieter. That's one basic idea of how you could build tension. But it's not just the dynamic range within one idea or musical sentence that you're playing. It's also the dynamics of your whole entire playing, your solo. So there's no right or wrong way, but you really got to just pay attention to what it feels like and what you're communicating when you're playing at a particular volume. You'll start to get the hang of it. It does take, I think, conscious effort to actually come down and relax and lower your volume, you know, and then come up to it so that it means something different. You have to make a little time to practice that and see what it feels like to you. A lot of these questions came from a slow blues class, so they're kind of tied into slow blues. I should have mentioned that, but they apply to all sorts of improvisation, not just slow blues. So back to that conversation of building tension with dynamic range. I mean, same thing with this question, sort of. How do you use the whole harmonica? How do you make that transition to the next octave? What are some tips? Well, just do it. Learn some scale work in each octave. Play around with learning and transposing musical ideas from octave to octave. And as you go up higher in the harmonica, often you are creating more tension and you're building towards that climax because those higher notes are a little more intense. And then you often come back down as you're going to resolve that. Yeah, it's important to learn some scale work in each octave. That'll open up your playing a ton. And learn a little melody up top, you know. Learn Amazing Grace up top, starting on sixth blow, for example. And then learn it in second position, starting on like one draw. Then learn it in the middle, playing it in various positions. So what you're doing is getting accustomed to making musical ideas in various registers. All right, here's a good one. You guys can ask questions if anybody has any. I'm just going to go until I feel it, and then I'm going to just stop whatever that feels like it's the right time to stop. So running out of ideas after the first 12 bars or playing something too close to the first 12 bars. Yeah, like repeating yourself a lot. I'll just say right away, we're often looking for the next good idea when we could be reinventing what we're doing. And I think a lot of level players are great at this concept of playing something and reinterpreting it using a lot of the same notes. Use those ideas of motifs in your playing to center yourself. The motif is something that we come back to. We can play it and come back to it. That way you're not trying to reinvent that wheel every single time. So you're rephrasing a lot of things. I also think your vocabulary naturally just builds up over time the more you listen to other players. Hey, what's up? Jaime, what's up, dude? Good to see you here. So give it time and really try to break down different players and their approaches. Focus on rhythm. Your rhythmic intention can be a great way to sort of open up your playing because you're not thinking, what's the next note choice I need? You're really focusing on the emphasis on the infusion of that rhythmic quality and the syncopation that you can use and changing up your phrasing. There's another thing that I share all the time with people to start to get out of the rut of playing the same thing, and that is starting on new note choices. So I won't get too deep into it, but just try to play blues riffs, in second position, starting on different note choices each time, and all of a sudden you're realizing, wow, that really does a lot because it leads me somewhere different. Just keep moving to a different note choice and see what happens. Let's keep moving. Yeah, so there's a question that popped up in the chat. How do you approach improvisation or improvising outside of a 12-bar blues? There's no difference. Let me just stop right there. You also wrote songs with quicker chord progressions. Once the chord progression changes, yes, you want to become familiar with those changes. But let's say I'm playing and I don't know what's coming at me. I'm just listening and then reacting to those chords by ear. This is how I do it. So I'm sitting in with a band. It's not a blues band. They're playing who knows what. Maybe it's a jazz band or maybe it's just something I'm very unfamiliar with. I may even just take a minute while they start and be studying and focused on those chord changes, listening how quickly they come, where I think it might be going, trying to imagine what chord that is or where that relates to on my harmonica. And I just find that it came naturally for me to listen and interpret in the moment. You really can do this. If you have the opportunity to break it down ahead of time, well, that's even better. Then you can look at the chord structure. Then you can apply that knowledge to the harmonic and say, well, where does this lay out? Those notes that associate with those chords, where are they on my harmonica, etc. And as far as it coming fast, remember, you don't have to change your ideas or adjust just because the chord does. Often, wherever you are will work over multiple chords, so don't assume that you have to change. Good question, though. All right. Somebody wrote they've been collecting phrases and they just don't have a lot of confidence of where to use these ideas they keep learning. Well, first of all, most of the ideas you learn will work almost anywhere in the progression of, say, a blues progression. It's the opposite, that there's very few times where it won't work. Like concrete ideas on the 4 chord with a long blow note aren't going to be great on your 1 and 5 chord. Well, actually, it will work well on the 5. It won't work on the 1. It'll sound out of tune. But that's kind of it. I think we often overthink it. So it will work over many portions of the progression. So take stock of what you know and play and work it out over the chords and start playing it and say, yeah, prove me right or wrong. Yeah, it does work over the 1, 4, and the 5. And then work on rephrasing also. You can also try to bring things together. If you haven't tried to reconstruct your ideas or push them together into a longer phrase, that would be good. I just did this class, Developing Licks. It was all about growing these ideas longer. And I don't know that I ever pointed it out, but you could take your just 2 short ideas and just bring them together. So, And also, don't forget to play less. If you're busy playing all the time, you're not really hearing what you're doing, first of all. You kind of, I like to pause in my playing so I can react to it. I can feel what I just played and let it influence my next decision. All right, a couple more here. There's so many. I have a long list, but it makes for a good. I think it made for a good video to talk about these relevant questions that are on people's minds, because I forget sometimes what it was like going through the process of trying to figure all this out. Here's a good one. Cool. You got a riffs book going. Excellent. You should have a riff book. I always say keep a journal, a little diary, a riff diary or something where you're writing them out to stay inspired and maybe feed off of these ideas later on, or see how you can add to them, build them out, develop them, join them with other ideas. Yeah, it's an important one. I mean, it's a good idea, I should say. Here's one. Will I play too much? How do I know if I'm playing too much? Well, that's, if it feels like you're playing too much, you're playing too much. That's what I think about that. Will I be able to share my emotions with my notes? Not if you're playing too much. Often most players can't put in a lot of emotion into fast playing because they haven't learned to articulate all of the notes and get the technique straight. Some players have, and they can do it very effectively, but other players can't. But there are great examples of guys who can do this and girls who do this, but not most people do not. So slow down. Let it hit you. Put the space in there. React to it. And also think about whether technique is getting in the way. Are you trying to use technique you're not ready to bring into your playing yet, and it's kind of causing this stumble in your playing? Because I think technique is actually a wonderful way to harness emotion, but it can get in the way if it's not straight, if you haven't worked it out and ironed out your technique. But when you have, it's a way to lean on it. I've talked about this a lot in classes where you hold, like you think about a 2-5 draw, that how much tension that creates. You don't really need to do much when you're doing that. You just hold it. And that technique takes care of the emotional value or the emotion you're trying to communicate. So technique to me is a big part of it. And you should treat every note you play like it's the star of the show. You should be giving it equal value to the next note. And if you can't do that, you got to play less and slow down. All right. Good stuff. That's a good one. Somebody said, don't just write them down, record them. Yeah, so you can get the phrasing of how you played it. Absolutely, that's a good idea. See how many different ways you can play it. See if I can grab one more before we go today. A lot of people were worried about, in this particular class, like phrasing and coming up with new ideas. It's interesting. Just remember that in time you're building muscle memory, and you're collecting ideas in your mind that even things that you may not be able to play currently, but in time you will be able to play it. Philip, how you doing? I don't know anything about the Seidel low F because I'm a Hohner guy, so I've never played it. I actually think the best low tuned one, my favorite is not either of those. It's the Rocket Low, Hohner Rocket Low. That's my favorite. So again, a big topic was losing themselves too, like getting lost in these progressions, especially if it's a slow blues, not a low blues, a slow blues. And if you leave that space and chew on less, you'll start to hear these changes naturally. You won't get so caught up that you're lost. All right, let me see if there's anything else I want to jump on here. A lot of people have come to me over the years wanting to predetermine or pre-prepare their solos and I think that they're missing the point of what improvisation is about, which is being spontaneous and creating in the moment and drawing from muscle memory and reacting to by having multiple choices of good note choices. Yeah, listening to singers, that's a great way to work on phrasing. But getting influenced from singers and other instruments in general. And just listening. That's the number one thing, like I said at the beginning. If you're listening a little bit more than you're actually practicing, your practice will become so much more productive. You'll be amazed at what it does to your playing. We underestimate the value of actively listening, and you got to do it. That's how it's going to come out. So that's what I got today. That was a lot. I feel like I covered a lot of ground in, I don't know, a fairly short period of time. I don't know how long I've been on here for 20 minutes. I don't know what's been going on here. So thanks for joining me. Yeah, you're working on juke with the 6-9 blow. You mean the 3-6 blow? That part, the intro? There's so much cool thing. When you're working on muscle memory, another quick idea is just limit the idea, shorten the ideas. Everything tends to come back to simplifying, but it's true. If you shorten the idea, take a nice simple idea, you can really work on recall, getting the muscle memory, and getting the technique straightened out all at once. Juke's a great example. Take an A harp. You're working on the transition from a single note to 1/4 draw, and then a series of octaves. And that's obviously the most important line in the song once you get that. We use the 6 blow up there like that. And that's another great idea, is just transferring your knowledge from one octave to the next. So you're taking and making sure you can do that. I did mention that a little bit. So those are some tips for you guys today. Some things that came from people that are checking out the classes. I mentioned it at the top of this video, but I'm offering 15% off of all my improvisation related classes. I believe it should be in the video description right now. I don't know if it's there. Yeah, it is. They're not hyperlinked, so I can come back and hyperlink it, or you can just go to the link and search for those particular classes, and the coupon will work at 15% off on any of those classes. They're all related to essentially improvising. I've got things like 12-bar structure, 12-bar improvisation, amplified harmonica, front porch blues harp, which is where you're learning to play without any accompaniment. So you're taking on all the chord changes yourself and playing chords and riffs. Back porch blues harp is similar, but it goes even deeper into other ideas. Blending technique for musical texture. There's an idea. This concept of blending your technique to really create texture in your music, if you're not working on that, bring that into your practice sessions. Take 2 techniques and work on 3 ideas that you're going to work them into each idea. Then try 3 or 4 techniques into a melody, let's say. Blues bass lines, blues jargon, styles and phrasing, blues riffs and motion, developing speed, essential blues harp language, and essential blues harp technique. That class is 2.5 hours filled with every single blues harp technique. The list goes on and on, from breath control to slow blues to slide guitar riffs. You look at the video description, you can check it out. It's on sale through the weekend. Appreciate you guys being here and hanging out with me today on YouTube. I have to go review this and see how OBS is working out. I learned a little something from you guys today, actually, with the aspect ratio. That was very helpful. I appreciate it. And thanks a bunch for taking the time to chill here today. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Why not? Hit the bell icon and choose all so you can get my live notifications when I go live. Thanks for being here. I hope to see you guys soon.